Everything you need is already inside of you. The world would not be what it is without you. When we begin to create change within us, we begin to create change in the world around us. Your journey to becoming your best self as the whole person starts right now.
Thank you for joining our Become Your Best podcast and webinar series. My name is Lauren Sweeney, and I'm your host today and the Vice President here at Rise Up For You. Today's guest is an incredible entrepreneur who has built a very successful business and 9 others that have grown and some brand names that you may be familiar with. He started the patio furniture company called Summer Classics, and he started it back in the 80s, and it literally doubled every 3 years. You're going to hear more about his journey in a minute. Well-known brands like Williams-Sonoma and others picked it up, and today they even still have stores all over the United States. If you are here as an entrepreneur or you're listening as a leader and you want ingenuity, creativity, to know how to have a business that really is built to last, you're going to want to listen in today. Bew White, we are excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So how did you started this brand, Summer Classics, that literally grew? What do you think contributed to the success of it doubling every 3 years? I mean, that's amazing.
Well, I was a sales rep. Selling outdoor furniture was the main thing I saw. I sold other furniture as well, but the main thing I sold was outdoor furniture. So I didn't really like what I was selling. I mean, to buy for myself. And I knew what everybody else was making, and I didn't like what they were making. So I was like going, I wonder if people would like what I like. And I had decided that I wanted to get off the road. I mean, traveling, and I was traveling 50,000 miles a year. I had 3 young children at home. So I'm like going, I've got to start a business that's not so dependent on me leaving my house every week and getting on the road and selling. So I had started multiple companies in an attempt to get off the road. And none of them were in the outdoor furniture business. I started a wicker company, a glass company, a mirror company, a lamp company, just anything I could think of that would create revenue. So I actually was calling on one of my customers in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And he had some, people have a section of their store, usually the furniture store, that has outdoor furniture. And he had these white Adirondack chairs. This was 1986, probably 85, somewhere like that. And he had this brand, Summer Classics, on there. And I'm like, wow, I love that. And he came in, I was like, man, who is this? And I was thinking I might pick up the line. He said, well, that's me. And I said, what are you doing? And I'm like, stores, independent stores don't generally start their own brand. He said, well, I've got this guy down the street making these for me and painting them, and I'm selling them. And I came up with that name. I said, well, that's a great name. And I couldn't quit thinking about it. So after I left there, I live in Birmingham, and I got back to home and I called an attorney and said, how do you trademark? And he said, well, I have a trademark attorney. Let me let you talk to him. So I called him, and he said, I gave him the idea. So I was in South Carolina. I saw
let me
this
pause
brand.
you for a minute, because I love this. So you thought, okay, great idea. I'm selling things that I don't really love. I wonder if I could make a business with things I love. You then had the idea, I wonder how to trademark. And today it really is still like that. How do I build a website? Google it. And we do that at our company all the time. So you thought, well, how do I trademark?
Google back then.
Right. So you call a patent attorney.
Yep.
This ingenuity and the ability is what I want to highlight, to say, I'm not sure, but I'm going to figure it out. And that's definitely a trait of a great
That's kind of how the whole thing ended up working. You're right.
It was just really
anyway,
a testament.
This is kind of interesting to most people. So I gave him the story, and he said, well, you can't use that name. And I was like, why? He said, because there's something called first use. I said, even though that guy doesn't have the trademark, he used it before you did, so it's his. I said, well, is there some way I can get it back away from him? He said, well, yeah, he can agree to give it to you. I said, well, then go ahead and start working on it. because back then you had to do it by mail. And so it took 6 months. Now you can just go online and see if somebody has it. But back then you had to mail it in, see if you could get it. So I said, go ahead and start. How much that costs? Okay, I'll pay that. And then when you call me back when you know, and then I'll call him. So he calls me back and says, okay, you can have it. So I called the guy and I said, well, like, hey, Curtis, what are you doing with that, that summer classics thing? He went, well, nothing. The guy went out of business and I'm not doing anything with it. Can I have it? Yeah. So, will you sign something? Yes. So I got him to sign an agreement that I could have the name.
That was the beginning. Now, this furniture business grew and grew and grew and grew and doubled every 3 years, which is really incredible. So what do you think really helped that process? Was it luck? Was it intentional things that you were doing?
It was differentiation. I think it was a lot of it had to do with being different. I knew the business. So I started all these other businesses that I didn't know that much about. And I knew a lot about outdoor furniture. So when I started that, I knew what everybody had. I knew where there was a niche, and I came into that niche and people liked it. I was right. Baby boomers. I was a baby boomer. People would like it. But eventually it got so big. I was like, I can't just make product I like that I would buy for myself. I've got to make product. I've got to design product that other people would like. And my model was fashioned after I lived in New York from 1972 to 1978. And I called on Ralph Lauren at the time, and he had just started. And I was fascinated with this business model because we were selling fabric. I was selling fabric at the time to cutters. And back then, everything was made in the United States. But he was different. So I was like, how does this work? He said, well, we designed the product the way to our specifications, and then we put our logo on it, and we market the heck out of it. And so we don't have all these factories and overhead, and we concentrate on smelling the market. Where's the market going? I said, wow, I love that model. So it seems a lot easier than having a factory you got to feed all the time.
Well, what's really great
is my business after that.
And you called him. Of course, he wasn't the Ralph Lauren that he is today.
Yeah,
right?
I actually worked with his brother, George, at the time. So,
but calling him, and so if we're speaking to the entrepreneurs and the leaders that are listening and they're thinking, how do you do something like that? You just get started, talk to people that are doing what you might like to do. He was doing something different, and you knew a lot about your industry. You also knew what wasn't working and what was working. So it sounds like you also had a lot of time to think about, how am I going to get my product to market? What is going to differentiate me? What are other skills that you see that entrepreneurs need today?
Well, there's a book that actually Gino Wickman, the guy that did EOS, wrote about being an entrepreneur, and there's 6 traits. And his comment is, if you don't have all 6 of these, don't even try. And I read it. Of course, I'd already, started all these companies. I was like, I wonder if I have these. So I was reading it. I went, okay, I have that one. Okay, I have that. The big one that most people will say, if you go through these traits with them, the big one most people say, I don't have that, is risk taker. And yes. The ultimate risk taker is in our midst now. Elon Musk is the biggest risk taker that I've, not, I say being associated with, that I've known. I was like, that guy will take major risk. I just finished watching the SpaceX special on Netflix. I'm like, this guy will take a risk. I felt like I took too many risks. In fact, there's a study right now about people that are in their 80s, late 70s and 80s, and one of their great regrets is that they didn't take enough risk. Somebody was telling me that. I was like, I think I took too many risks, because I would bet my house every year for 10 years in a row. So
you're very successful, though, and
it could have gone the other way.
Absolutely. Well, we do talk a lot on the show and with our company about confidence and taking risks. I don't mean jumping out of bungee jumping, but speaking up at a meeting looks like taking a risk for a leader. In business, taking risks really does have to do with our confidence. So you must have had a lot of confidence as well. That's one of the traits, and one that a lot of people don't have. What are the 5 others for entrepreneurs?
So visionary. visionary ability to see
Visionary.
the future. You see
Yeah.
something in the future, like I saw a product or in my mind that I thought hadn't been introduced. And constantly I'm having to think about that now, constantly having to think, what is something people would like to buy before they want to buy? Passionate, very feel great about your business. Problem solver, being able to solve problems, which you have to do constantly. I say I have an MBA in mistakes, so you're making mistakes and changing all the time. Being responsible, that kind of goes without saying. You have to be responsible. So it's visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven. I'm so this is a trait that I have. When I read this in the book, I was like going, wow, this one keeps me up at night. I was like, I almost wish I didn't have it because I can't sleep because I'm so driven to go to the next level that I can't. I'm constantly working on that or thinking about it. So that's it. Those are the 6: visionary, passionate, problem solver, driven, risk taker, and responsible.
So good. So you're building this business, creating it. Now, you said that you had 9 other businesses. How many of them came after Summer Classics, or did they all come before?
Well, I'd say those came before, but I've had a lot come. My son came in and I'd already decided to start an indoor furniture company, and I was going to call it Summer Classics Home. And he came in. That's kind of how I put the magnet on him and attracted him to come into the company, because I was like, I've got to get him in here because I need somebody to run it if something happens to me, which actually is part of the book. If something did happen to me, and I was like, thank God he was here. But I had started Summer Classics Home, and that got him interested. And he said, I'm interested in the indoor part of it. So he changed the name to Gabby, and it's grown. It's up over 100% this year. So far this year, I was like, it's been incredible growth, and it's sort of the millennial XY generation, really cool, hip, modern, but eclectic. Sort of has a French twist to it. Great looking product.
Drag a little on Gabby, so that our listeners know, if they haven't seen it, where can they find this furniture? I mean, this is not just some random company, just like yours has stores all over the country and can be found at Williams-Sonoma, et cetera. Where else can Gabby be found?
Gabby, well, Wayfair obviously has all of this product. Wayfair has pretty much any furniture you could want. And then, of course, we sell online. You can buy it on our website, Summer Classics or Gabby website. And then we have our own stores. But really, our big business is selling to dealers in the area you live in, so that you'll probably find a dealer, a store that sells it in your area, a furniture store. Absolutely. Or in Summer Classics case, it might be an outdoor furniture store.
And then you decided to build these businesses, build them with your family. I know relationships are really important to you. Talk a little bit about how relationships and building your personal board of directors helped you in being so successful as an entrepreneur.
I have a guy on the board of directors that was with Ralph Lauren for 22 years. So it really depend on him. I have another one that was on, Frontgate was one of our largest customers, and this guy was CEO of Frontgate. So those guys are really helpful to the board. But I think relationships, to me, if I said one thing that could really help you in business, is relationships. And mine with my wife, when I got in difficult times, which there was tons of those, where I'm like, I can't figure this out on my own. I was like, I would go to her and go like, I've been paying myself $40,000 a year for 10 years. That seems crazy. And she would say, no, I believe in you. You can do this. And I was like, okay, well, if you believe in me, maybe I can. And then, this is a really critical part. When you get to the certain point, let's call it the tipping point, when you go over, it's incredible what happens. So it's like, no, you should always know your break even, but you go past break even and you might make a little money, but there's a point where you can really catch on fire. And if you can deliver, you will make a lot of money. You can make a lot of money. You can see it in like the Tesla numbers, where they're losing, or Amazon, they're losing, and then suddenly they hit the tipping point and boom, they're awash in cash. And that can happen. It's not easy, but it can happen to you. And then what I had happen in the 2008 recession, this is about relationships with vendors, is I like, I can't figure this out. I'm like, I've got a $20 million line. I don't know how I'm going to pay this back. And I called one of my vendors in Asia and said, I don't know what to do. And he said, well, just don't pay me. I was like, ever? And it's like, well, no, you have to pay me eventually, but ride your payables. We're symbiotic. I believe in what you're doing. You know, we need each other. I'll let you ride your payables. And so he lent, in that way, he lent me $2 million. And so $2 million with no interest. So I'm like going, and I started calling my other vendors to see if they did the same thing. And I came up with $5 million, literally within a couple of weeks by writing my payables and getting my vendors to agree, both domestic and international vendors to agree to let me ride my payables. So I paid the bank back from 20 million to about 2.8 million in a period of 9 months. And I won't say that saved me, but it certainly made me sleep better at night.
But there's that creativity in being able to collaborate. And the recession was tough for so many businesses, and people were not buying furniture and people were freaking out as well. So you really thought, how can I lean on? You mentioned the relationship with your wife, but then the relationship with your vendor, that relationship management piece, that fourth pillar inside of emotional intelligence, you use that. How can I support? Because they know, and we did. You came out of the recession, and today it's still a strong brand. And you knew I could build that relationship with those vendors. They would trust me, and then it would work out. I would pay them back.
It's the same with your employees or your kids. You know, obviously, I got 2 of my children in here. That's not easy. It's probably more difficult for them than it is for me, frankly, because sometimes I tell them what to do and they don't like it. And so I've kind of let them run they're doing their own thing. And now William's CEO, my son is CEO. So
fantastic.
I kind of say I'm his lackey.
Well, Bew, tell us about the book. So the book is called Summer Classics, and they can find it on your website, Bew, which is BEW. If you're listening to the audio version, White.
It's actually Bew. It's like Bew with a B. So it's kind of
Bew.
Everybody says Bew though, so you understand.
Spelled Bew, spelled BEW, and then white.com. You can find out more about Bew, and then you can also find out about your book, which is really great. So we love to ask a question as we wrap up, and that is, what does Rise Up for You mean to you?
I think the relationship thing that I spoke about earlier is really critical, but I'd say, one of the great traits, and of course this is one we use in our company, is integrity is one of the great traits, and it's you're always trying to do the right thing, but you're building your reputation as you go through life. So if one mistake and you lose your reputation, it takes a lifetime to build a reputation. It takes a second to lose it. So you got to be really on your guard not to lose your reputation or do something that's not integrable. So that's critical. And then never running out of money. That was one of the things I kind of, when I realized when I was growing, you can grow yourself out of business. You can grow so fast that you can't support your receivables and inventory and pay for it fast enough and turn it over in order to collect your cash, particularly if you're not like the software business, you're actually buying product. And so never run out of money has been very helpful to me. And then planning, this is my favorite quote, you get the future you plan for. So we're nuts about planning. So you're going to get, it's amazing how you'll come out with a plan, you'll sit down with your staff, and it looks like it's really aggressive, and then they'll execute it. They'll get behind you and go, okay, let's go. We can do this, guys. And they make it happen. And then we're going to grow. We could grow as much as 35% to 40% this year. So if the stock market doesn't kill us, we'll do that.
Wow. Well, thank you for your resilience, your tenacity, and the ingenuity to really be starting out just, walking around, selling things door to door, being on the road, and then trying quite a few businesses that didn't work, and then really landing on one that's been so successful, 2 divisions, the book, everything that you're creating, but really the impact that you're making as a leader, as an example.
Yeah, I think that's critical. How you look to your employees is critical.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Oh, what an interesting conversation. The ingenuity, I mean, just amazing to have a company really built to last. Well, I'm Lauren Sweeney. It's been my pleasure to be your host today. Did you know if you go to riseupforyou.com, you can download our Master Success Kit? It is absolutely free and it's packed with information to help you personally and professionally as you rise up for you. Until the next podcast, I will see you soon.